Hey, successful fam, we know that everyone deserves a place to be successful. That's why all day, May 4th and May 5th, we are hosting our Successful Summit 2026 in Asheville, North Carolina. During the summit, you will experience panelists, keynote speakers, as well as interactive workshops led by yours truly, as well as other brilliant queer entrepreneurs across the country. If you'd like to learn more about our summit, you can find out more on queerandsuccessful.com, and we hope to see you there. Enjoy today's episode. Far too often, LGBTQ plus business owners believe they have to choose between authenticity and being successful. Through these real life stories, LGBTQ plus listeners aspiring for success can gain valuable insights to navigate their path to being both queer and successful. Hello, everyone. It is me, Hunter J. McNair, your hostess with the mostest, back again for this week's episode of Queer and Successful. Y'all, this week I'm taking it back a second and I'm slowing things down because this week is all about reflection and all about just kind of sharing to you all this journey that I've been on for the last really what many would see as the last 3 years has really been the last, I would say, 11 some plus X amount of years. But today I'm going to be sharing with you all my journey towards being a trainer and specifically a master faculty member for Keller Williams International. Now, if you do not know, I am already a Keller Williams University approved trainer, which in and of itself is a feat. And this past week in Atlanta, I auditioned for KW's master faculty, which is the highest honor that you can receive and the highest degree of, let's say, accolade that one can accomplish within the Keller Williams University ecosystem, if you may. Now, before I keep going, I don't know yet, as of recording this on March 3rd, whether or not I am going to be KW Master Faculty, at least for right now. And as I await that decision within probably the next 24 to 48 hours, I felt like it would be beneficial to come to you all and just kind of like talk about my path to where I am and really share some of my insight into how to accomplish this type of thing and hopefully give you all, like, I wouldn't say necessarily motivation, but I would say just kind of clarity on what it takes. So to back up a little bit, Keller Williams obviously is a real estate company that I have hung my license with for the last 11 years. Keller Williams has trainers within the company. And Keller Williams is actually quite known for its training space. It's actually been ranked as one of the top training businesses in the world, and I mean across all industries, not just real estate. So, being a part of Keller Williams' kind of training universe is a big deal. And so Keller Williams has many different, branches within it. And one of those is Keller Williams University. Keller Williams University is a segment of the company that essentially creates all of the content and all of the coursework and the classes that you might be receiving when you go attend a Keller Williams training. It's been a long-standing program. It's been something that's been around for a very long time. And it's not always necessarily the thing that's the most talked about. I think within the company, the thing that's most talked about often, or at least most visually seen, is the Keller Williams MAPS program, which is its own thing. It's more of a coaching program. They handle bold, but Keller Williams University is specifically for trainers, people who want to get up in spaces and train people on different aspects of business. So as you can tell, that's something that I care a little bit about. And Keller Williams University, when you are a part of that, allows you to kind of run your own business or your own, branding along with your training, where something like KW Maps in the company is a little bit more regimented. It's a little bit more like, okay, you're joining their team, not the other way around, right? So with Keller Williams University, the opportunities are Keller Williams University approved trainer, and then of course, master faculty. And there's some other side certifications and things like that that you can pursue as well. But for me, my journey to where I am today, which again, I am a Keller Williams University approved trainer, started really back, I would say, 19, when I held my first Rainbow Mastermind for the Keller Williams Rainbow Network. At the time, I had been networking, and I say networking loosely. What I mean is messaging queer real estate agents every single day for like 4 months. And, when I started real estate, I didn't feel like there was a lot of space for people like me, right? There wasn't a lot of content geared with people like me in mind. Meaning, like, I would go to a class and they'd be like, yeah, just like take your kid with you to go door knocking, or, hey, like go to the soccer game and do this. Or, yeah, man, like I show up to the sports bar and like I just buy a bunch of beers for my guys, right? All of these types of things really didn't fit me. And so the trainings that I had weren't really, they were amazing. Like the core of them was fantastic, but the people that were around to kind of amplify the content didn't relate to me, right? So it was difficult. And it was something that for my first couple years in the business, I struggled with, because I knew I needed to do something to be successful, but I didn't necessarily know what that could look like or who that could look like. And so 19, as I veer off onto 30 different tangents, I said, I want to do a Rainbow Mastermind because I want to start learning about what it's like to be successful and queer, right? Like I wanted to be around people who were queer and successful, because I felt like those are the people that I can learn the most from. So I created the Rainbow Mastermind and I started facilitating that room. And towards its end, I had a room filled, I think, with around 100. I think the highest we ever had was about 165 people in that space. And I want to kind of preface in saying too that facilitation of a mastermind is also different than training, because training, I am proactively teaching people things, bringing content to life, digging deeper with questions, etc. But in a facilitation, you're mostly managing the flow of things, and you're also in a mastermind. You can ask deeper questions and obviously bring yourself into it, but it's not really supposed to be the show of the person facilitating, right? Because there's a difference between a trainer and a facilitator. However, I loved it, right? I fell in love immediately with controlling a room, putting my voice out there where I could. And for a long time, the Rainbow Mastermind that I had created for the Keller Williams Rainbow Network was kind of like a safe space for me to practice that in a fun way, right? Like I could practice kind of what it was like to run a room. I could practice digging deeper on questions in a really safe way. So in 2023, I had finished up doing the Rainbow Mastermind and all of the Rainbow events at Keller Williams Family Reunion. And I was exhausted. And there was a communities event for Keller Williams that I had signed up for, and I wanted to be the representation there because there's a lot of different communities for Keller Williams, like luxury, young professionals, etc. But obviously, the queer space was one that's a little less represented. So I wanted to be there and I wanted to attend. So I went to this communities event at Family Reunion after I was just purely exhausted. And I remember sitting on the couch near the exit, because the truth was I wanted to leave and I wanted to go home and I was so tired. But something in me was like, no, I should stay here and I should sit. And, if people come to me, people come to me, but like I'm still need to be present and I'm here for a reason, etc. So I'm sitting near the exit of this event, and in walks in Wendy Papazan. And if you don't know Wendy Papazan, she is a powerhouse real estate team owner out of Austin, Texas. She is also part of the Keller Williams University realm. She's now a Keller Williams master faculty. At the time, she was a Keller Williams University approved trainer. She was a person who was known for traveling around, training, leading a massive team who does tons of business in Austin. And I knew her. I interacted with her in the past. We were cordial, I would say borderline friends from different just kind of interactions. And she walked in and she looked over and she just like, her jaw dropped, my jaw dropped. And I was like, Wendy. And she was like, Hunter. And so I ended up hanging out with her that night. She kind of took me under her wing, which is funny because I'm usually the really outgoing one. But that night I was like super exhausted. And she just took me under her wing and we started hanging out and, we were talking. And long story short, we ended up in an Uber ride together to the Keller Williams Young Professionals like karaoke bar night, which is so funny that me and her would end up going to that. But we're in an Uber ride over there and she looks back in the mirror from the front of the Uber and she says to me, she says, "Hey, like, have you ever thought about training?" And I said, "Well, I've obviously been leading the Rainbow Network stuff for what, at that point, 4 years. So, I mean, I'm already training." And she said to me, and I'll never forget it, she said, "Well, have you ever thought about training outside of that space?" It's one thing when like you have a passion for something and that like you probably should break out of your comfort zone to do it in a bigger way. But it's another thing to hear it from someone like Wendy that you highly respect and highly adore for not only her ability to train and lead, but also her prowess and knowledge in the industry. And so it was an aha moment for me. And she went on to suggest that I seek out becoming a Keller Williams University approved trainer like she was. Get out of my comfort zone of the Rainbow Network and start to master the skill of training people. And so I did. Literally not too long after, honestly. That was February of 2023. You skip forward to May 4th and May 5th of 2023, and I had booked my first classes to teach from Keller Williams University. Now, to back up a little bit on that, if you want to become a Keller Williams University approved trainer like Wendy, like myself am now, first, you have to teach classes in different locations. There's a set amount of locations. I can't remember how many different ones there are. You have to teach at least 4 different pieces of material from Keller Williams University, 2 of which have to be 2 that they've picked and 2 of which have to be that you've picked. You have to train and get and receive at least 75 reviews that average 4 out of 5 stars. You do that, you get the 75 reviews, and then you also have to travel and take a class called Train the Trainer. It's either Train the Trainer or Train the Presenter. You have to take that course, which is a 2-day course. You then have to go back and do another Train the Trainer or Train the Presenter advanced. And in that course, you show up and you actually present a 20-minute audition in front of the instructors, and they either approve you or they say, "Try again next time." So in and of itself, getting Keller Williams University approved is a journey. I had to go and get 75 reviews, travel to Austin, Texas twice on 2 separate occasions, pay for the classes, and then hope when I went to the second one that I did enough job to get approved. Now, before I reach the end of that kind of journey, which is obviously my approval, I want to talk about the path that it took to get there. So there's tons of different types of Keller Williams University trainer and courses that you can train. And I specifically actually chose to teach in a majority way some classes that were Keller Williams University. Those first 2 classes I taught were Win with Buyers. But the other one that I taught was actually Proud to be KW, which was a new diversity, equity, and inclusion training course that had come out that year that I wanted to train on. And so I actually took my connections with real estate agents that I had made over the years, and I started reaching out to my friends and saying, "Hey, I want to bring this class to you. Can I come to your market center or to your office?" Now, I didn't charge back then, right? I didn't charge to travel and train to get those 75 reviews that I needed because I felt like I needed to earn my way. I still think that should be the case. I still think when you're trying to prove yourself that you probably shouldn't ask for compensation when you travel and train because you're trying to earn an accreditation. I did, however, request the rosters for the market centers and the offices that I was training at. So of course I could still grow my business. So I started teaching first Win with Buyers, but when the Proud to be KW course came out, I started teaching that. And what was fascinating, I think, about both experiences of teaching those different courses was, one, the Win with Buyers class was a full day class, great class, but a full day class. And that is quite difficult to pull off when you haven't taken any classes on how to do it, but also just to get like people in the room, right? So my classes, I think the first one in Myrtle Beach was like literally all of like 4 people the whole day. And it was, I think I can handle that better now, but I think as like, hey, I just traveled, I'm doing this for free and I'm failing forward. I mean, I've practiced, but just failing forward in the process of doing it in front of people for 4 people for an entire day was probably really, really mentally draining. And I could do it now, but I really couldn't do it. I couldn't handle it back then. And it's funny because that was my first day, May 4th. And I almost quit. Like I literally almost was like, yeah, this isn't for me, because I was like so depressed that there were only like 3 people in the room. And then I went to Wilmington the next day and I had an amazing class of like 20 people. And that's no shade to my Myrtle Beach class. I'm sure like y'all are still out there and I love y'all. And teaching to 3 people is really tough compared to 20 people. So next day I went to Myrtle Beach, Wilmington, taught 20 people and just had such a blast. And I remember thinking at the end of it, like, wow, like how cool is it? If I had just done this once, I would have been like miserable, but now I did it a second time. I think I'm in love with it. And I was instantly hooked, and I started teaching Proud to BKW soon after. And that class was fascinating, not because it was a full day class, but because it was a 2-hour class that was about diversity, equity, and inclusion training, which in a, audience that's not necessarily, part of your community, it really pushed me to talk about who I was and talk about things that I know that I would say an expert in spaces that I was not comfortable in yet, because that was the whole thing. That was the whole thing that was keeping me back from ever training outside of the Rainbow Network, was purely that, I was afraid to be queer and successful. I was afraid I was going to get up there and people would judge me for my voice or my femininity, or they would give me bad reviews. But by the time I actually auditioned for my Keller Williams University approved trainer audition, I had already gotten like 90 reviews and I had like a 4.98. Like I think some rando gave me like a 1 or something with no feedback, or accidentally gave me a 1 and it was supposed to be a 5. And yeah, I mean, it was a journey in and of itself, but nothing, I don't think, really prepared me for what happened after I got my Keller Williams University approval. So you become a Keller Williams University approved trainer. You take the class on that second day and you wait until that evening and you get an email from your instructor that says, hey, good job, you're approved. Fill out your form to continue on with your application. Or they say, no, you haven't been approved. Come again next time, pay another X amount of money and fly to X amount of where, and, hopefully you'll get approved. Y'all, there were people in my class who had taken it 3 or 4 times. So it was not an expectation that I was going to get approval on my first audition. And I did. And I remember sitting in my hotel room when the email came through and just being so excited and just jumping with joy, because I had really worked for it. And I had really worked to be good and be practiced and to follow their curriculum, but at the same time be, authentic in who I was. And looking back, I would also say that that person was a little delulu, right? Because again, once I got it, I think the real story really begins. So I managed to get my approval from starting in May of 2023, really. Got my recommendation by September of 2023, which was all of 4 months, if I'm doing the math correctly in my head, which I'm saying out loud is really, really wild to get that many reviews, to go through the audition process, to knock it out. But again, I had years worth of experience, at least in crowd management. So I get my approval and everyone thinks that it's an easy button from there on out, right? Everyone thinks that you're going to get your Keller Williams University approved trainer little badge and all of this opportunity is going to come to you. Well, that's not the case. There were 2 other people in the class with me who were fortunate enough to get approved. And, I've seen their journeys over the last couple years and I've seen mine, and it's been an upward battle for us. And that's not because being an approved trainer is not a good enough, accolade within the company. I think it's truly that nothing is an easy button. Nothing that you get is ever going to be all right, now the rest is easy. Now you got this, you can just check out, right? And so I had to make a conscious decision after I got my approved trainer certification, or whatever you want to call it, that I wasn't going to check out, that this was just the beginning. And truly, it really just was. It really was just the beginning. And so I didn't actually book another course until April of 2024. And you'll see, like, a lot of the times, like once we get into like December, November, December, January, February, there's really not any classes that get booked because, one, it's winter, and then two, because of family reunion for Keller Williams, market centers don't book anything in January and February. So I really wasn't booked right away. I was, though, booked to teach Win with Buyers on April 30th, I believe, in 2024. And that began truly like the leap. Wow. Like 2024 was absolutely wild for me because I had my approved trainer badge. I had all my connections who knew, at least on paper, that I was good enough to be a trainer. But also, there was another course that came out called Value Squared. That was really pertinent at the time because at the end of 2024, there were going to be rule changes about how we were compensated in the real estate industry. And that class was a class that really talked about it, which allowed me to leverage that course to get through doors. And I'll tell y'all, at one point over the course of 4 months in 2025 was in 16 different cities training. It was wild. Now, if you also remember anything about me in 2024, you'd also remember that I got a little big and I was not eating healthy. And I was a little depressed at the same time because of it, because I didn't feel like the inside matched the outside, but also just because I was so busy and I was on the road and I was, paying, or getting paid, I should say, to do those trainings. But I also was running a team and it was just really stressful and I did a lot. And you might be saying, okay, why did you do so much? Well, I did so much because I wanted to be master faculty, which brings us really to the goal today and what I just auditioned for last week and I still don't know about. But the goal of master faculty for me, and because you might be asking why do you want to do master faculty? Why was that so important to you? Is one, again, it's the highest honor and the highest achievement you can receive within the Keller Williams University world. Some would argue it's harder to achieve it than MAPS or bold coaching, which is like a really big deal. So for me, the reason I wanted to pursue it specifically was because out of the 30 some odd master faculty members, half of them, or a good chunk of them, are the Keller Williams C-suite, which is the executive suite. A lot of them are retiring or not as active anymore. A lot of them have other leadership opportunities within the company. All of those things in alignment with where I want to go. But more importantly, I saw it as an opportunity and I see it as an opportunity for me to go in and help curate some of the content for the company to make sure that the content is more equitable, I guess, more written for everyone, not just for some people in mind. That has always been my intent with going into it. But really, on top of that, just to become a better trainer. And what pinnacle of it all is it than working your butt off to achieve something like that? So now you're asking, well, what does it take to achieve something like that? Well, after you have completed your 75 plus reviews and your two-day classes towards Keller Williams University approval, you then get a reset. And you are now challenged with not getting 75 reviews, but getting 300, 4.5 out of 5-star reviews, along with 5 recommendations from master faculty members, which again, there's not a whole lot of. So in my first 12 months of pursuing master faculty, remember I said 16 cities in 4 months, I actually got about 210-ish reviews in 12 months. 210. And I was burnt the heck out, y'all. I was so burnt out at the end of 2025. It wasn't even funny. And 2024, it wasn't even funny. And then in 2025, I was like, oh my gosh, I have 210-ish some reviews for this. I wanted to get 300 in a year, which was wild. I don't even know why I thought I could do that. Now I've got to push through and fill the gap. I've got to get the extra 90, all while still running a real estate team, real estate business. And alongside that, discovering and falling into Queer and Successful, the community, which along that journey became more substantial because I realized I could actually have a space specifically for training queer entrepreneurs and real estate professionals. And so last year, I set out to finish my 90 reviews. I was actually able to take my own courses and my own content. I have a full day class called Authentically Successful that I was able to take and travel and train with to finish out my 300, 4.5 out of 5-star reviews, which I actually have a 4.98. Thank you. And this last week was my audition. And so all of that work, comes together and arrives at this moment where now you have to audition for master faculty. You've done the 75 reviews, you've passed the first audition, you've done 300 reviews, you've got the recommendations. Now it's time to be judged by a jury of your peers. Now, y'all, I am knocking on wood like crazy right now because it is, let's just say, I feel like I did amazing, and that does not matter. It absolutely does not matter that I feel like I did a great job at my audition. Most people literally do not get, it's almost one of those things where it's like, you're not going to get it the first time because no one gets it the first time. And that wouldn't be fair. It's one of those types of things. It's also one of those types of auditions and one of those types of achievements where you don't really get to get it. You really don't get to be approved unless you don't need it, right? When we talk about the Keller Williams University approval, right? I said, you get it, but it doesn't stop you from working. You still got to put in the work to get yourself booked, get yourself in market centers, get yourself paid, and then also just get your reviews, right? And so master faculty is just what it sounds like. It's mastery. And you're not going to be mastery unless you don't need anybody to give you anything else. So it's a culmination of have you learned everything along the journey and truly mastered it. And so this audition is 20 minutes worth of content that you have to prepare from a Keller Williams University approved course that you have to pick amongst thousands of pages of content, curate to exactly 20 minutes, and ensure that it includes a slew of criteria, some of which I'll mention now. You do have to make sure there's a solid introduction that relates to your material. You have to make sure that you're telling everybody what the objections are for the course you're going to be instructing them on for the next 20 minutes, along with the benefits of why they should be learning that content. You then have to present that content in what's called a 50-50 manner, which is essentially where you are instructing the audience, but the audience speaks back to you about 50% of the time. So it's not a lecture, not what you're listening to right now. You then also have to present them a story of your life, a story of something that happened that obviously relates to the material that ties back to the material. There's bonus points if you can do things like role model and role play in your instruction. There's bonus points if you looked a little bit more prepared than your other people, or you looked a little bit more prepared in your audition. And you have to follow exactly the book and you cannot stray from it. And you have to make sure that you stay authentic to who you are. So it's a lot. And if I could show you my notes just for this presentation, you would think I was a mad person because I probably am. I will tell you, I picked, and this is just for full transparency, so that if this is something that you ever wanted to pursue, you could yourself. I picked the section from Win with Buyers on pages 100 through 105. And that course may be getting retired soon, but it was the very first course I ever took with Molly DeMattos, who's a good friend of mine, as a new agent back in 2015, as a new business owner back in 2015. So it was content that was near and dear to my heart, but also something that I could relate to as I've worked with many buyers at a really high level and done a really good job with them. And I would say going into the prep work for it. Again, and this is something that if you want to know what it takes to actually do this, I want you to just have clarity on why it's so hard, right? Because 20 minutes is easy to ramble. 20 minutes is not easy when it needs to be very segmented and ensure that you're filling all the content that you set out to cover while also digging deeper with your audience and while being genuine to who you are. So how I did it was I took the 5 pages and I essentially broke them up into segments, which it naturally kind of does on its own, right? I then timed how long each segment should run, and I practiced each of those sections over and over and over and over and over again until my timing was perfect. right? I knew the first section needed to be no more than 7 minutes. It could be anywhere between 6 minutes and 15 seconds to 7 minutes, just because I'd done it so much that I knew that it would land in that time period. I knew that by the time I was finished, I'm looking at my notes. I knew that by the time I was finished with my second page, that I needed to be around the 12-minute mark, if not less. Anything more than 12 minutes, I was screwed and I was going to run over in time. Next page ran about, I believe, a minute. Actually, the next page really ran for another 8 minutes. It was 3 segments, a 7-minute segment, a 12-minute segment, and a roughly 11-minute segment, 11-minute to 12-minute segment, just depending on how long the latter half took. And so I practiced that over and over and over and over again. And y'all, there's also some nuances on like body language, positioning, tonality. All of these are part of the rubric as well. So it's not just I'm going to read this and practice it. It's also, how am I bringing it to life for my students? So the day arrived. And it happened. My audition for Master of Faculty happened last week on Monday, near the end of February. It's so hard to talk about it because I don't know the result yet. And again, I don't want to like jinx anything. And what I will say is I was filled with joy. And I think that the way I walked into this was all of these years of self-doubt, of getting myself in places that I was scared to be in. Y'all, I taught in Des Moines, Iowa, okay, with my little rainbow heart pen to some cis straight people, okay? That was scary. Like, whether I admit that or not, it was scary. So, all these emotions and this culmination of like years of self-doubt and working towards something and practicing and, being vulnerable and getting in spaces all led to that moment. Even going into it, I said to myself that I was really just grateful to be there, really just grateful to be in the room, really just honored to be in the room because, working my butt off to even get in the space is difficult in and of itself. In the grand scheme of stuff, I'm a nobody. I'm really not. Like, there are people who have been in this business for more than 11 years. So I've been doing this for 11 years. It's a big company. There are people who are connected. There are people who have been around since the beginning, 40 some years. I am a nobody in the grand scheme of this. I came from nothing. I started as a solo agent, as 23 years old. I didn't have, mentors to becoming a trainer or to facilitating rooms or getting rooms together. I built it on my own with some guidance, with some representation along the way, obviously. But in the grand scheme, I'm a nobody here. It was really an honor. And no matter what the outcome, I am extremely grateful for the opportunity to perhaps do it again should that need happen. But it's like one of those things where I'm going to do it again, just in a different room. So what's the deal, right? If I have to do it again, I have to do it again. I had some fellow KWU trainers who took it with me and were auditioned, in the same round, I guess you could say. We didn't get to watch each other's auditions, but I know some were happy with their results, or at least how they felt like they did, and some looked less happy with how they did. I don't know. I will say, what I will say is I had a lot of fun. And I really walked in that room and I was like, this is my room. And I feel like I did that. I feel like I delivered that. When you're done with your audition, again, this is just more for clarity on what it looks like. When you're done with your audition, they walk up to you and they say, how do you feel? And I just said, I just feel joy. I just feel joy because it's an art for me and I'm passionate about it. I love spreading my joy and being joyful when I instruct and keeping people attentive. And yeah, I just felt so much joy and I would do it again just because, not because I didn't get it, but I would do it just because it was that much fun for me. And they offer some strengths and some weaknesses. The judges do. And I really didn't have any bad opportunities or anything that seemed wild. I will be really transparent in saying, while they were really nice to me, I know where I could have improved. I know that given the time constraints and the limitations of that the ability to dig deeper on questions is a little harder to do when you're practicing it because you don't know how long people are going to take to respond to you because they have to act as like fake students, right? So that's the only spot that I know I could have done better in off the bat just because, of the time constraints. So we'll see. We will see. But here's the true lesson of this conversation with y'all, which is the path to mastery should be also the path to joy. When you're waking up every day and deciding to become someone better than who you were yesterday, it should be filled with joy, and it should be filled with gratitude and how much of an honor it is to wake up and say you are who you are because you worked for it. And again, no matter what happens, I'll be happy because I don't need it. I don't need master faculty. I just want it. I want it as validation for the work I've done. I want it as a, like, you did what you set out to do 3 years ago, and it's only going to be better from here. And do I want it? Yes. Please, if you're listening to this and you're one of my deciding people, please check. I want that approval or master faculty approval, because it's going to allow me to change more worlds. And, the title won't change that. That'll still happen, but it'll make it a little bit easier, right? At least a little bit. So that's my journey. That has been my journey on, going from facilitating a room of gaggling gays to now leading and training a room of gaggling gays, cross brokerage, soon, cross industry. And I'm taking it slow in a lot of ways, but also fast. It feels like it's really quick, but it also feels like it's been a long journey. Really grateful for where it's taken me. And if you didn't kind of pick up on the dates when I said May 4th and May 5th, as you recall, those were the 2 days that started my Keller Williams University approval process. Those are the 2 days I took to train in Myrtle Beach and in Wilmington back in 2023 and started my journey towards getting reviews for the program. They also just so happen to be the 2 days for the Successful Summit that Queer and Successful is hosting in May, on May 4th and May 5th of 2026 this year. It's really serendipitous. It's a full circle. I did not actually think about that when I scheduled the dates for Queer and Successful's inaugural summit. And I think that it's a sign, and I think it's serendipitous that it happened that way. It is the full circle for me, right? To have gone from so much fear and so much anguish in not only the spaces I was permitted to be in, but also the ones I was permitted to train in, to now saying, I own this and this is who I am. I am queer and successful. And that first inaugural Successful Summit in Asheville is going to be full circle. And I hope you're all attending who are listeners. I'm sure you are. It's humbling also. So thank you all for being on this journey with me. Thank you all for those who've been along the ride for the full time and have seen me fail forward in so many different ways. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for the continued opportunities to lead you, to train you, to speak to your heart. And I hope we can make this world a little bit brighter because of it. If you enjoyed today's episode, leave us a 5-star review, share it with a friend, share it to somebody you know who wants to become master faculty, or even just a trainer or wants to enjoy that kind of process. Have them reach out to me. As always, you can follow us on YouTube, all the different places on the socials. If you haven't signed up for Queer and Successful's Successful Summit, what are you waiting for? It is now officially 60 days away. So go to queerandsuccessful.com. You'll see it pop up right on your screen to attend. We've got a lot of cool other things going on there. So check out the website if you haven't already. Until then, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day and even more beautiful rest of your week. Until next time, bye.